American millennials can't identify exactly what Auschwitz is.
And 62% of millennials did not know that 6 million Jewish people were killed in the Holocaust.
A lot, like thousands.
Tens of thousands of people died, if not like millions. I'm not really sure.
Wasn't it like a special religion? What was it called? I know what it's called, I just can't think of it right now.
People just think of just Jewish people during the Holocaust. There's actually Poles, Gypsies, LGBT, African, like every type of person that wasn't Aryan race.
My generation doesn't know that much about it, I don't think. They don't teach it that much in schools.
They aren't really taught like the ugly truth of what the Holocaust really was.
Kids are not being taught as much as they should be. Like, I feel like some people are trying to push it under the rug and hide it when it really needs to be talked about so that doesn't happen again.
Phenomenal documentary. I really want to congratulate everybody who was part of this film because it is absolutely amazing and I loved it. I've learned about the Holocaust throughout my life, but I've never seen a piece as moving as this one. And I didn't realize until seeing this film that we're in danger of losing the history of this time on two fronts, because we have the survivors who are growing older as the years go by and the younger generation who just don't even know about it. So this documentary does a great job of not only educating viewers, but also bringing these two generations together and bridging that gap. I love all the different mediums that we get to see, from the museum to these artists who are working towards the same goal. It was just a fantastic way to reach a wide audience. And the survivors, their accounts are absolutely heartbreaking, but they're so important to have. So I really want to thank them for sharing their stories. The filmmakers did a great job of capturing them and bringing them to life. And finally, everything just dovetails so nicely at the end with that song. It was wonderfully written, beautifully performed, and I absolutely loved it. And as a side note, as somebody who lives very close to Detroit, I just want to say I loved his shirt, the Everybody versus Injustice. It was a nice play on the Detroit versus Everybody shirts that I see all the time, and it was totally appropriate here. But again, just fantastic job. Well done to everybody here, and congratulations.
So I feel like there's not enough great things to say about SHOAH Ambassadors. First of all, I thought the opening was really strong in highlighting the lack of awareness of the Holocaust, despite it being one of the most large-scale horrific events in history. And I feel like even people that might have a good general understanding of the events of the Holocaust can learn something. I know I did. I thought it did a great job of highlighting the importance of the next generation in working to keep the memory alive, especially through art. I thought that was a really clever way of approaching this topic, and it was interesting to see how these two artists' interactions with the older generation and Holocaust survivors kind of informed their art. And it was kind of just a very satisfying ending to see how their work came together in the end. And I thought that the integration of animation and found footage was really powerful. It made the film a lot more dynamic and added a lot of visuals to the victim stories. And it was overall just a very powerful film. And congratulations, because you guys did a great job.
This was a very moving doc, looking at the Jewish Holocaust during World War II. What sets this film apart for me is that two young American ambassadors recently learned a lot about the Holocaust and used their amazing artistic talents to create works of art, one a rap song, one a glass sculpture, to raise awareness about this tragic event in history. I found the interviews of the Holocaust survivors to be so heartbreaking when they described firsthand what they went through. The black and white footage, photographs, and artifacts from the event were really shocking. The occasional use of animation was also very compelling and memorable. I really appreciated how, by the end of the film, both the youth and the Holocaust survivors were able to come together to fight injustice and represent the goal of never again. Excellent work.
It's never easy to watch and hear these stories, but I think it's so important, and it's presented so well here. It's just always heart-wrenching. But what I did enjoy about the message here, about the purpose, is just finding a new way to teach the younger generations about the Holocaust and the travesty that it was, because it's just completely disheartening to learn that it's just not being taught the way it was. It's not given the attention and due consideration that it deserves. and that's not good. So the fact that they're taking young generations that are able to speak to their peers in a meaningful way and relay this information in a way that'll stick, I think is just really, really good work, smart work. I'm glad it's being done. It's obviously it's a horrible thing that happened, but it's presented with a lot of thoughtful attention here by the filmmakers, and it deserves to be shared around and watched. It's a strong piece, really, really well put together. Great editing, just great stories. It's always, like I said, hard to hear these stories, but I think it's so important, and the more we hear them, the better. And this film just did a great job at presenting them. Just a good mix of footage and animation and motion to just really keep things moving and dynamic. Thought it was really smart, really touching again. Again, it was all a shame that it happened, but I'm glad this one exists so that it can be shared around and that the message can stay strong. Definitely have a look.
It was a really difficult film to watch. And it was beautifully put together. It was difficult to watch, but it was necessary. It was a very, very necessary reminder of where we've been. I think that the filmmakers did such an incredible job with pacing, with their interviews, in choosing their ambassadors and the talents that each of the ambassadors had, and going through the interviews, going through historic footage of what happened in those concentration camps. It was especially emotional. I had a difficult time watching this, and that's exactly what you want from a viewer, is you want them to get emotional, especially some of the stories that the survivors were relaying. I think that all of the sound was brilliant. I think that the cinematography was incredible, and everybody relaying their stories, just, you feel like you got sucker punched. We can't forget. What is the quote? It's something about, if you forget the lessons that history has taught us, you're doomed to repeat them. Yeah. Very important film, and bravo for making it.
It was beautifully executed visually. Something that stuck out to me in particular were the way that archival photos were chosen and arranged and then recorded to present as opposed to shown individually on the screen. I thought that it was very dramatic and impactful to show archival images this way. I also enjoyed the role that art played in the film. I think that often Holocaust education materials don't focus on art in particular, and that it was interesting to see the survivors and the younger generation now learning about the Holocaust, processing the information and the event itself through their artistic practice. I also really thought that it was interesting the way that this film used the younger generation and their experience of learning to then educate us as viewers, because it allowed us to see information that we may have heard before through a new light of discovery, and to consider how important it is that we continue the process of learning about the Holocaust and of educating our younger generations and those around us who may not have as comprehensive a knowledge of this event.
Was such a fantastic piece. It really had all of the elements, creative elements included in it, which was music, visual arts, narration, storytelling, animation, drawings, everything. And I think what they did really, really well, and I think this is can be attributed to the editor, which is putting all of this together in such a seamless way. The transitions were fantastic. It didn't feel messy or complicated or choppy or disjointed by any means. I thought that it all flowed really nicely despite having very different creative mediums sprinkled throughout it. I think that the goal of this project in general is absolutely amazing. It was so shocking and frankly disappointing to hear how uninformed the youth are about the Holocaust. Just hearing the interviews at the beginning, I was just like, wait, what? Wait, how do you not know this? So that was, you know, a really strong start, a really strong way to start the documentary. And I think that that was a great choice of having the lack of information, but also having, you know, Holocaust deniers, which is just a whole other thing. But, you know, right away, you're going to have strong feelings about either the deniers or the people who don't even know that it happened. And it was such a huge, huge, huge historical event that happened. So it's just a really great way to get the audience involved, emotionally involved right away, and then beautifully and lovingly discussing the stories of the people that it impacted. And it didn't focus so much on numbers, because I think that numbers can get lost a lot of times when you're just spouting statistics, but really getting the first-hand accounts of people's survivors' experiences during the war was just so priceless. And what a treat to be able to hear directly from their mouths and their accounts of what happened. I loved the story of Bear. Absolutely love the story of Bear. And yeah, it's a really, really special film. I think that the whole goal behind this in terms of educating the youth is fantastic. And the way that it ended was also really powerful, which is saying, hey, we're telling you these stories, but it's up to the youth to continue telling those stories after we're gone. And to make sure that this never happens again. And how do you do that? Well, you have to educate yourself on what has happened in the history in order to stop it from happening in the future. So I could talk about this forever. Fantastic job of really making this information accessible, easy to understand, and compassionate, but also optimistic going forward. It was everything. It was great.